1 in the Always Sunday Football League did not disappoint. There were highs and lows, great performances, and total duds. All 4 new teams won their games. Eddie, Jay, Will, and actually, never mind. We had landslide wins and nail-biting, heart-wrenching losses. We laughed, we cried, and we learned. And we're only just getting started. On this week's episode, we'll recap the game of the week, which made a strong argument for game of the year. We'll break down the rest of the matchups around the league, and we'll take a look ahead at the week 2 slate. But before we do that, let's welcome our co-hosts. How's it going, Danny?
Good. What's up?
Welcome back to the show. Everybody's great. Everybody's great. I'm presuming everybody's great. We all have everybody's Achilles are intact, correct? Yes.
Still, as far as I know.
And everybody on the call. Okay, cool. Johnny, how you doing?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Man, I lost 5 years of my life yesterday. We made it.
Anthony, how's it going, man?
I guess good. It could be worse, but not bad.
Fair enough. I know that, there is one top story that we do all want to talk about, but I think we may as well handle all the nasty business that John alluded to with Not What You Want. This week's Not What You Want is going to focus on the terrible list of injuries that we have to look at after just 1 week of football. In John and the Jets case, it was just 4 plays of football. Aaron Rodgers ruptured his Achilles, done for the season. John, just let's get some instant reaction from you. How you were watching, I presume, and you saw everything as it transpired. How are you feeling right now? Take us through it. What stage of grief are you in right now?
So I was in class watching the game. So I had class these back-to-back days. So it's been a little rough. But I was watching the game on my phone, on my laptop currently, and I have my phone there. And as soon as I saw Rodgers go down, I knew it wasn't good. I just knew it wasn't good. Instantly, I thought that the season was over. I thought that the game was just a wash, just angry, just why me, why Jets fans, just started doubting myself. And so I was like, you know what? Let me get out of my pity party and let me think to myself, it can't be as bad as the Giants. Can't be as bad as the Giants. So with that being said, I kept watching my team and I said, you know what, we got a young core of players, we got good receivers, we got a great defense, and Josh Allen does not play well according to last year in MetLife. And sure enough, Josh Allen absolutely craps himself, and the Jets defense absolutely just pummeled him. Jordan Whitehead, 3 interceptions in 1 game, never ever has been done. I think he's had 3 interceptions, like not even in a season. So for him to do that and to pull out the victory in overtime was an absolute moral victory. But we have a long season ahead. It's not, we already know what Zach Wilson is. I'm assuming that this team is going to be relying on the defense, and we'd be really lucky if we even have a winning record.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say.
I think a winning record went out the window with Aaron Rodgers' Achilles. It's ugly. It's ugly.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too. I mean, people are calling it the worst, the most devastating injury in the history of the sport. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it's in the conversation. Yeah, it's in the conversation. I mean, Tom Brady,
just with all the other
that 1 year was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah, with all the stories and everything that unfolded for this.
For as much as the franchise had riding on his shoulders.
Right, and so this was the Super Bowl team, and then yeah, 4 plays in.
Shameful. J.K. Dobbins, season over. His Achilles as well. So he'll be done for the year. That makes things interesting with who takes over that backfield, how things shake out over there. But it's really awful for J.K. Dobbins, who was already on that 1 year tender, and he wasn't happy at the beginning of the season. So this is a guy whose career is in serious jeopardy. Deontay Johnson, hamstring, going to be done for several weeks. Dulcich, hamstring, several weeks. Aaron Jones, hamstring. We're not so sure how serious it is, but we'll find out. Austin Eckler, we're not so serious. We're not so sure how serious his ankle is, but we're going to have to keep a close eye on that. Anthony Richardson had a knee or an ankle, some sort of leg injury. He should be okay. Jacoby Myers, concussion protocol. Kenny Gainwell with the ribs. And the entire New York Giants franchise had their souls ripped out. And so we'll see how they recover from that. Danny, what is your quick reaction to the Giants Cowboys game before we really dig into this season, this week on the slate? Just quick reaction, Giants Cowboys. How are you feeling?
Fucking gross.
Thank you.
I thought his feeling was silence.
Anthony, how you feeling?
Nah, I think it's in the past, bro. Moving forward, not what you want to see on week one. But I'm not going to base the whole season off of them playing that way every week. So on to the next one.
And that wraps up Not What You Want pretty nicely. And now let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. The game of the week. Beer Muscles, 137.94. The Champ, 135.9. Beer Muscles victorious. The actual showdown between Bobby and Luis couldn't possibly live up to the insane hype leading to the contest. Could it? It could, and it did. Patrick Mahomes got the game off to a meh start on Thursday night, diffusing one of Bobby J's potential explosions, and Jahmyr Gibbs was fully underwhelming. The Champ's confidence was at an all-time high heading into the weekend. Luis made good on his vow to bench a player, opting to play his 8th-round pick Jalen Hyatt and bench his 9th-round 49ers defense, and made a late swap of Derek Carr in place of his original choice at QB, Deshaun Watson. Bobby was forced to start Elijah Moore in place of the injured Christian Watson. Throughout the day, both teams had successes and failures. Bijan scored 20.3 points in his NFL debut, but Drake London put up a 0 as the Falcons' passing offense somehow looked even worse than we thought that it could. In fact, the rest of Bobby's team failed to crack 10 points outside of Brian Robinson's 13.6. The door was left wide open for Luis. Calvin Ridley stormed back into NFL action with 26.1 points, and Tyreek Hill went nuclear, scoring 47.5 points in his first game for the Champ. The tide looked to have turned in favor of Luis, and Bobby began facing the possibility of a loss with a significant deficit and only Sunday Night Football left to play. And then the magic happened. Luis's 8th-round pick, Jalen Hyatt, scored 0 points with a pitiful performance. In contrast, the 49ers defense scored 19 points on Luis's bench. But the star defense of the night, of the week, and most likely of the year was Bobby's Dallas DST. With one of the most dominant defensive performances in league history, Dallas scored 46 points, was the highest scoring player in the league, and led Bobby J's Beer Muscle squad to an amazing 2-point come-from-behind victory. In the closing moments of an otherwise dreadfully lopsided blowout, good triumphed over evil, and our sweet boy went to 1-0. And for that, Bobby J is this week's hero. On the other hand, Luis will go down in league history for a performance that could have been included in Not What You Want, but instead will stand as a warning to all future trash talkers. Benching a player that scored 19 in favor of a player that scored 0, late swapping his QB and sacrificing 3 points in a 2-point loss, pledging to pay $50 to the first team who beat him in the first 4 weeks, talking more trash before a single game had been played than anyone in this league has ever seen in a full season. Luis talked the talk. Luis made a statement. Luis lost by 2 points in crushing fashion in the last moments of a Sunday Night Football blowout. And for that, Luis will go down in the history of the league for being this week's GOAT. Special note, as a reminder, there was a scoring correction that I made this week regarding forced fumbles as opposed to fumble recoveries. Our scoring system should be good to go from here on out. I did not have anything to do with the Calvin Ridley nonsense that happened for a few hours on Monday, causing the champ score to read incorrectly. That was specific to Just a Sleeper website, and it was eventually fixed. They did not provide any explanation. We at ASFL TV are investigating claims that Luis works part-time at Sleeper. Jonny, your quick comments on this game of the week. Jonny, you there?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that you better talk. You better walk the walk before you talk the talk, especially in this league, Luis. So, welcome to buffoonery, and I do want to highlight some things, some notations, and some vocabulary words from Luis, as well as a special addition to Bobby J.
Interesting. Go ahead.
As we go, Luis has been talking lots of smack. All right. In particular, there's 2 new vocabulary words that he has been using. 2 words.
Okay.
Nervous. I'm confident. You're Bobby J. Nervous. Second one is shaking. All right, shaking. Bobby J, you're probably shaking. Now, I think that what's noted is that Bobby J has now used pronouns in describing Luis in his trash talking, noting that he called them chuckle nuts and clown shoes.
Chuckle nuts.
Interesting.
And for that is the vocabulary words of Luis and Bobby J's trash talk. Back
It's
to you.
expanding.
Nice. Yes. Chuckle nuts and clown shoes. I like it. Danny, any comments on the amazing come from behind victory for Bobby J?
I mean, you literally couldn't have written it up any better. I mean, it's almost like, how the fuck do you talk about anything else? I mean, 46 points.
Yeah, and it was just, improbable play after improbable play. The fact that the defense of all things was shutting down the Giants offense in such a way that the points, like I wasn't even paying attention to the game, to the scores for a while, because I didn't think that Bobby.
Why would you?
I didn't think he was in it. I thought the game was over. I thought Luis had it wrapped and in the bag. And then I think something in the chat is what made me look at the score and say, holy shit, like, look at this. This is really happening here. And then from that point on, I was saying that I was on the edge of my seat. I was on the edge of my seat. Like, I've never been cheering more for a random game or another sack. Oh my God, another sack. Like, every time the Cowboys sacked him again, I was like standing up. It was incredible. I was like, I know there's going to be at least one. I knew in my mind there was going to be at least one more 4th down stop that they were going to get. So I knew they had another point. I was like, oh my God, this is actually possible. This is going to happen. Jalen Hyatt has that one target where he dropped, it was off his hands and he drops it. It could not have been any better. Anthony, closing thoughts?
Yeah, same. I, as a Giants fan, at the halftime, I knew, and with everything I was like, look, we need to just focus and ride the wave of let this defense let Bobby win and let karma do what it does.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into the chat. I was like trying to not write much in the chat that would, could be potentially any type of jinx or any type of like rock the boat or cause any waves. I just want to be like, hey, everybody, pay attention to what's going on right now. Just you're witnessing history here. Let's all just be cool about it, And
there was a few games that came down to these, and one was like very, very, very close to this. With the way it wrote, it was crazy, unbelievable. I love the outcome. And that shows you. But the one thing that is he basically played every card to lose. Like any other decision he makes or doesn't make, like if he is just in, like the quarterback switch, anybody else but Jalen Hyatt, not talking shit, not having to put out your defense, like, or start your defense and bench Jalen Hyatt. But like all these things happen, and That's
It
the way
was
it
a
is.
perfect. It was a perfect confluence of events. John said it perfectly. Welcome to buffoonery, and Danny, illustrated it perfectly. You could not have written it any better. We had ourselves. We were all treated to something. I hope everybody in the league was paying attention as that was playing out, because that was a real treat. That's why we play fantasy football. The other games in the league this week.
The all-star team for me is Run CMC.
Okay, talk about it. Run CMC
Is
wins
one of the
his
new
first game,
wins, highest score of the
148.94
week.
to
Yeah.
121.6. Go ahead.
Yeah, Eddie Mack coming in here. Everybody's saying not confident in the receivers. My man, one of those receivers, puts up a 0 with the deplorable fucking Bengals game
Yep.
and performance. And with a 0 from his wide receiver 1, it seems, or at least draft that way, he puts up the biggest score of the week, having Christian McCaffrey scoring 30.9 points and Tua with the 30.
His keeper, who people
His
questioned.
keeper, who people questioned, and then him questioning. I did message him and say, "Are you contemplating that Hill pick?" And he's like, "Fuck you, man." But still, McCaffrey putting up those numbers. As you go down, I mean, nothing like popping out. Addison showing up with that touchdown, so Addison putting up a good score there. Mooney weirdly being the one that scores. He had the Jets defense, so yeah, a well put together game against the Rogues, who did end up losing Rodgers in this game, but a tough opponent for sure. We all know this. Who had Brandon Ayuk throwing up that 35? So
Well,
I say
let's give credit where credit is due. As you said, Run CMC was the highest scoring team of the week. He beat Gotham by 27 points roughly. Aaron Rodgers ended up getting injured and scoring a 0, and Garrett Wilson had 5 catches for 34 yards and one miraculous touchdown on a terribly thrown ball for just 14.4 points. So let's just make this statement that no team, the notes I have here are highest score, but also worst injury. Rodgers and Wilson probably were on pace. As a matter of fact, before the injury, Narkowitz was favored to win this game, and then the injury happens and it's all over. That's the end of that. Where Gotham suffered a tremendous loss in this game, not only in his quarterback. He doesn't have another one on the roster. He's going to have to make a decision there. And Garrett Wilson now loses tremendous amount of value because he's got Zach Wilson as his quarterback. So Gotham lost more than just the game in this one. That was a crushing loss. Did you have a worst team? Did you have a chump for this week?
I did have a chump, and I had you don't want to just straight go, all right, it was the lowest score. I mean, it's the reigning champ coming out, with the lowest score of the week. But I wanted to do something because it was a little more juicy.
Okay.
And
who's your chump?
It was our pretty boy.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so Pretty Boy lost his matchup against That's What She Said, 109.84 to 102.14. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now, prior to the season starting, there was a trade offered by John to myself for some players here that if he would have not done so, he would have won this game.
That really wasn't a very well composed sentence, and we don't understand.
No, it wasn't, because I'm trying to look to make sure that was right, because I was like, oh, is there anybody else that he could have put in? And then, I mean, you're not going to start Curtis Samuel. But if he would have just left his team alone and not listened to whatever was making him do it, or however he was feeling, he was catching that heat from everybody with the receivers on the less.
So what you're saying is that if he didn't make the trade with you,
yeah, he wins this week.
Oh, well, that's okay. If I had wings, then I could fly. Like, what are we talking about? That's not that's not any kind of analysis here. He made a bad trade. That's why he's the GOAT this week that's why he's the chump this week, because you think his trade hurt him. Well, we already talked about the trade.
Trade did hurt him.
But we already talked about that. we can't just every week now look at what he would have done if he had the guys who he traded before the season.
Well, it was
started.
just the first week.
That's not that's not how we do things here. But yeah, I mean, Kadarius Toney stunk. That really hurt John in a bad way. He scored only 102 points, which is one of the lowest scores of the week. Not the lowest, but one of the lowest. Generally speaking, Justin Fields was a bit of a disappointment. Derrick Henry was a disappointment. He got outsnapped by Tajay Spears. Overall, the only player on John's entire team that played well was Aaron Jones, and he got injured. Defense scored 0 points. So it's an apt chump. But, I mean, we're not going to go through his roster every week and replace players that he traded before the season started. We all agree that was a bad trade for John. We know that he shouldn't have done it, and he did it out of reaction from what people said about his team. John has to live with that. Unfortunately, now he has to live with the fact that he's 0-1 as well. Hey, John, who was your all-star player of the week?
Yeah, as mentioned before, I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa. 28 out of 45 with 466 yards passing. Wow, that's he's legit, man. I've been beating the drum. I remember when we did our rankings on Tua, and you guys thought that my ranking on Tua was a little too high. Well, welcoming party. He absolutely outplayed Justin Herbert. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 36-34 win against Anthony's Los Angeles Chargers. All right. And again, it just proves my point how much Brandon Stanley stinks.
Brandon Staley. And yeah, he's not the best, but I think both defenses in that game need to be embarrassed.
Not good, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that Tua just showed that he should be in the conversation of one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and for that, he's my all-star. Now, going into my chumps, it was mentioned earlier, I'm going to go with Kadarius Toney, and Kadarius Toney, not only for fantasy purposes, but in real life, just did some absolute crucial things. 5 targets, 1 catch for 1 yard receiving, but in particular, he had one mishandle that resulted in a 50-yard pick six by Lions defenseman Brian Branch earlier in the second half, which erased a 14-7 deficit. And then on Kansas City's last drive, he failed to secure one of his catches that would have resulted in a first down and what ended up being the last drive. So I think that Kadarius Toney, not only in terms of fantasy purposes, but is a big reason why Kansas City just strictly lost that game on Thursday. And for that, Kadarius Toney is my chump of the week.
Yeah, he catches any one of those balls. It changes the game.
He was terrible. He was very, very bad, and he's going to be hard to start in fantasy going forward. The Blumpkin Bums matchup, which I'm surprised nobody talked about in this. Team Blumpkin defeated the Drunken Bums 113.6 to 112.64. That's less than a point. That's less than a 1-point victory for Team Blumpkin. That's the closest game of the week. And, obviously it could have gone either way, but Team Blumpkin escapes with the 1-0. And both of these teams, Team Blumpkin had Dallas Goedert, who scored a 0. And he still ended up winning this game.
Trevor, what you want.
Trevor Lawrence got outscored by Anthony Richardson. Very, very interesting. Team Blumpkin escapes with the 1-point victory. The next game that we didn't talk about was the Sizzler and the Golden Showers. It's another one that I'm surprised nobody really focused in on. The Golden Showers, the lowest score of the week, suffered the biggest loss of the week. It was the biggest landslide victory for the Sizzler. Danny, how's the championship hangover?
It's week 1. Burrow put up like 4 points. The important thing is I'm not really dealing with any injuries, so I'm kind of happy about that.
But Burrow does have those little tiny baby hands. He's got the Junior Whopper hands. Confirmed.
Yeah, but he's been fine. He's had a couple decent games in his career, so I'm not worried. I'm not.
Fair. Just a little bit of a hiccup there.
Are we,
Everybody.
week five. I'll worry. Week 2. Not yet.
Well, let me ask you this question. Much like the Eagles and the the Ravens, do you think you'll be doing anything different in the preseason to get your guys up to play a little bit quicker? You know how these slow starts can be.
Well, he was hurt. He really couldn't practice. As far as the other guys, Harris, I mean, the Steelers just look fucking terrible, and the Niners beat the shit out of them.
Yes. Yeah,
those are by far my 2 worst performing players, and then obviously Kelsey getting hurt didn't help manage.
True. We discussed the That's What She Said to PBJ matchup. PBJ ended up losing That's What She Said by about 7 points. The only note I have for this one is that this game happened. Sweep the Leg fell to Stillwater 127.26 to 105.86. Suffered an injury, lost to Deontay Johnson. Trouble in Paradise. Sweep the Leg has been one of the stalwart better teams in our league for several seasons in a row. Hasn't finished lower than 3rd place in something like 5 seasons, which is pretty unprecedented. This season, roster's looking a little shaky. This might be a little bit of a different ride for Sweep the Leg. Key matchups for next week. Are you guys ready to talk about? Oh, Danny, do you have any thoughts before we go? Because I know we didn't talk about your your all-star or chump. Do you have any thoughts, any takeaways from the league this week, matchup wise?
No, just all Bobby and Lou. I mean, we talked about it. That was
it was absolutely
everybody else
epic.
was playing second fiddle.
Absolutely epic. Where were you?
We were a mere backdrop.
Right. Everybody remembers where they were when Daniel Jones got sacked for the 7th time and then the 8th time, and then it was like it really was magical. I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Bobby, go back to sleep. And
it's working.
We really did get a treat in week 1.
Oh yeah.
In week 2, the game of the week that I'll be highlighting is between the 1-0 Sizzler and division rival 1-0 this Kirk Stillwater gang. These are in real life neighbors. They're division rivals. They both started 1-0. They both had high scoring week 1s. They both have solid squads that they're going to be putting against each other in week 2. This is the game that I'll have my eye on, because what we're looking at here is a power struggle in the Baldwin division between 2 teams that escaped week 1 without major injury. Of course, Anthony's got that Cooper Kupp thing he's dealing with. But overall, I think we're looking at 2 solid squads. So this will be our game of the week. Anthony, your thoughts?
I agree. I think it's the matchup of the duo of wide receivers. The guys with the 2 best groups of wide receivers, and I think it's going to come down to what he does with that QB position. If I think you're going to be keeping Daniel Jones against Arizona and not be worried about week 1. Is Andrews going to play week 2? He's got Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs. That 1-2 punch is really tough.
Don't forget Olave. Don't forget Olave.
I will not forget Olave at all. But
he's down there.
He is down there. And then it's going to come down to the flexes. I mean, I'm going to be moving some things around myself. But yeah, I need a good performance at its matchups. Like Devontae Adams at Buffalo is going to be interesting. I need a good, I would have loved to have Kupp right here in this game.
I think you both are going to have some question marks at running back, the running back position. So I think it'll be an interesting matchup. I think it'll be pretty evenly matched. I'm looking forward to it. We can't expect another dramatic game like the Bobby J. Luis game, but I think this will be a good one, and it'll tell us who we're really dealing with when we're looking at these 2 teams. Anthony, who's your key matchup for next week?
My key matchup for next week is Sweep the Leg versus the Champ.
I had a feeling
Okay,
this would be yours. Go ahead and talk about it.
well, I mean, not just because it's trash talking guy, but it's sweep the leg like you were saying, coming a strong contender for a long time. Multiple championships. Starting off 0-1 in a very tough division, and going against the other 0-1 team here to see who's gonna go to 0-2 and be at the bottom of the barrel at this division here. And with the injuries going on, an injury on each squad, these guys got to make some moves. It's gonna be interesting to see who's gonna come out on top and push one guy down to that 0-2.
Yeah, nobody wants to start the season 0-2. That's a bad way to get things going. And I'm interested to see what kind of trash talk we'll see from Luis this week.
Confirmed. Side note: messages were happening minutes before we started. He stated, "I will not trash talk against David." So my immediate response was the Kobe Bryant meme. So you know what I'm saying. So he said he won't because you invite him into this league, and don't be soft. I was like, he's fine. He's a big boy. He'd be okay.
That's very kind of him. And probably wise, especially considering all the things that we've seen happen already. Seeing what Luis has already gone through and how his trash talk has come back to bite him, and what we know about, how I control the media here, it might be better if he just, refrains from the trash talk.
Yeah.
Jonny, who's your key matchup for next week?
Yeah, my key matchup is another division rival between the 0-1 Gotham Rogues versus the 1-0 Team Blumpkin. Both teams are dealing with injury, as mentioned earlier. Gotham Rogues with a huge loss to Aaron Rodgers with torn Achilles. And obviously this hurts his keeper. And big mention is his keeper, Garrett Wilson. He was really banking on that Aaron Rodgers, which, hurts his fantasy team really big. So with the possibility, and please confirm this, I believe Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins are waiver pickups.
That they're available on the waivers, you mean?
Yes,
They are available on waivers, yes, among others. They have Goff, Cousins, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, all had, Jordan Love and Brock Purdy had nice weeks in week one. So there's definitely some options out there for sure. Waiver wire is going to be spicy hot this week.
Yes, absolutely. So with Narkowitz dealing with a key injury at quarterback, I definitely know by tomorrow I'll be interested to see who he picks up, and I to get back on track and possibly get his first victory in week 2 versus Blumpkin, as mentioned earlier, winning by a narrow margin of 0.96 points over the Drunken Bums. Dealing with Eckler with his ankle injury. Blumpkin may be turning to Tyler Algier, or the possibility of maybe picking up, this is speculation, of Joshua Kelly on waivers as a backup option. So both teams dealing with some injuries. I think that between Narkowitz and Blumpkin, this is a division rival dating back to the original fantasy league. So that is my key matchup of the week.
Awesome. Hey, Danny, you have any matchup that you're looking at?
Yeah. Hold on, I had it already.
I could see.
We lost you, Jonny.
The piggy, Jonny, and Run CMC.
Okay, go ahead, talk about it.
Well, Ann started off with Run CMC was our high scoring team in week 1.
Right.
Came out of the gates running. Johnny's looking to avoid going to 0-2, much like myself. Good quarterback battles. Obviously, Tula, Fields, see if he rebounds a little bit. Got to see what's up with Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
We still have no idea, right?
Agreed. Yeah, or correct, I should say. That's the one downside of doing the show on a Tuesday night, is that we don't have really any injury information.
Right, we don't really know. So yeah, now he has Dylan, so he'd slide him in, but ideally he'd like to replace Tony. But Deion Jackson probably goes to pretty much useless next week.
Yeah.
Right, because Moss probably plays.
I think you're right about that. So yeah,
Yep.
Johnny's gonna have to make a move with the Kadarius Toney thing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
On the other side,
Yeah.
he could just roll out that same lineup again and hope for the best. I think, because I don't think he
Yeah.
really
I would
has
probably
any.
burn through the budget.
Who, Johnny?
Yeah. Spend that money.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of waiver wire claims this week. Week one being what it is. The note I have on that PBJ Run CMC game is trending or pretending. Is Johnny's team, actually a bad team, or is it just a matter of getting things moving in the right direction? And is Run CMC actually a good team, or did he just have a couple of really good players this week? We have to keep an eye and see what direction both of these teams move in. Speaking of moving in a direction, Beer Muscles takes on the Golden Showers this week. Will the champion get back on track? Beer Muscles coming off an emotional win. This is the ultimate letdown spot against a division rival. This is where we're gonna find out if Joe Burrow, he's supposed to have some good weather. So is he actually okay, or is there something for cause for concern? Right now, you're looking at Travis Kelce and Zach Moss both hopefully playing, and if they do play, they'll be in Danny Mac's lineup, and he will be a formidable team. On the other side, however, Christian Watson looks like he might return potentially, but we really don't know. We don't have that information yet. Drake London, humongous question mark in fantasy football right now. So
Anybody on the passing side of that team?
Right, exactly. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, pick your poison right there. It's not it's not exciting, but he does have the heroic Dallas defense. So, I mean, this is going to be a pretty solid matchup. I'm looking forward to this one. And I'm sure Danny is as well.
Oh yeah.
And then the other one that we haven't spoken about is the Bums, and that's what she said. They're both coming off close games. They both could have opposite records. Like right now, the Bums are 0-1, and that's what she said is 1-0. But the Bums lost his game by like less than a point, and that's what she said won his game by like 7 points. So they were the two closest games of the week. They could easily be, flip flopped records. The matchups are pretty even. I think these teams going head to head, have a really, really even back and forth. We have a couple of interesting matchups this week, and because it's week 2, this is where we really could see some separation. If nobody wants to start off 0-2, nobody wants to start off 0-2. That could be catastrophic for your season. Anybody have any final closing thoughts?
I have just a final statement here from the chat, which is always juicy and fun. Lou stating, David is going 0-2. Sorry, buddy. Hope you guys talk about how awful Johnny team is and how we'll beat him.
Well, I think we covered everything. I think we did. We did cover those things. So Luis should be really happy when he watches this episode. Johnny, any final thoughts?
Yeah, Luis, when you're 0-2 and you're last in the league, I'm going to be laughing, buddy. Laughing.
Danny, final thoughts?
Yeah, I really hope I don't go into.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to right now is just like, let's get back on track. Everybody have a good waiver wire. Everybody have a good, waiver thing. This episode will come out after the waivers have run, but it should be exciting to see how things shake out in advance of the Thursday night contest. I got one stat for you guys. This is a disgusting stat. The highest scoring tight end in the league this week scored 11.5 points.
Who?
The highest score, it was TJ Hawkinson.
TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, and it was 11.5 points for the highest scoring tight end. That's not what you want from the tight end position. We need to get that figured out. That's gross. Yeah, it's not good. So that'll do it for this episode. Good luck this week, except if you're playing against me, and I'll see you next week where it's always Sunday.